Yeah, the microphone is going, so I think, oh, but the light isn't on.
Yeah, we want to.
Oh, the video, right.
You don't see us, we just get.
Okay, this should be okay, then I see the microphone going and I see the video going, so.
I think we would, I don't control it. We're not doing anything. So we need to okay for test, we.
Video in, we said video.
Do you want to make it full screen?
Yeah, but we'll do full screen.
Oh, maybe, oh, that's a good point. Maybe it's funny like that.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Testing,
Yeah, I think it's,
testing 1, 2, 3.
yeah, I tested it earlier. So should be fine.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, the Lincoln trustee of the trust funds will now come to order. It is 9:04. And this is a work session today. First thing we're gonna do before we get into that, we're gonna approve the minutes from the 4/17/2025 meeting. I asked the town manager, Karina, about that recording. I can't find it. She's gonna look into that. So you've been looking for the 4/17 meeting. I have 2. So hopefully that'll be on very soon. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the minutes from the 4/17 meeting?
On the minutes, I just wanted to look at, we probably should have the spelling of the name correctly. It's not a big deal, but there's no H after the S, CASINGHI.
Okay, yeah, well,
And I apologize for that.
No problem, I've been dealing with spelling issues on a new book. So
that's how,
Me too.
that's how, when I get the email from the town, that's how it was. Yeah, sorry about that. It's no H after the S, okay?
other than that, I guess with that call amendment, we would move the minutes to be copied.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. Passed. Okay, I'll sign them and turn them in. Jane's not here today, so I will give it to the office.
And just real quick, I did ask the town for the recording of the minutes, but some of the people were away on vacation, so they like Herb just mentioned, they're still looking for some of that stuff. So maybe this time they'll give it to us. Although I'm not sure we even hit the AI part of that recording right now, so maybe not.
This is a recording now, okay?
It's recording now, but I think you have to hit something else for AI, so we might not even get it this time. There's some sort of AI dictation of some sort.
So you don't think we're recording right now then?
No, I think we're recording. I just don't think we're going to get notes from this meeting minutes.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's in addition to the AI part.
Okay, one thing before we, because Gary gave us a background last time, which I appreciated. I think all you and I should get some background about our backgrounds. One thing, we need a motion that this has to go into the minutes. That Becky can take deposits to the bank and everything. But they said they have to have it in the motion. I know we passed this before, but apparently wasn't in the minutes.
Right.
So that's where to clear it up. Like a motion for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is because I'm not familiar with.
All right. Yeah, so basically, how it's typically go on is that whenever the town has a deposit, whether that's, one of our two accounts. So that could be like even cash from like, the fire department, for example, or straight checks of, like our semi-annual, annual deposits. So they would call us and they would put it in their, box. And then when we would come in, which wouldn't be immediately, so they might have a check in there for a vast amount of money, or a money deposit for, again, it could be, usually it's not large, but sometimes it makes people nervous for it to be sitting in the box. So, regardless, it's just easier for the town to keep accounting of matters if they go down the street here to the Bank of New Hampshire and make that deposit. It's a deposit only function. It's not a withdrawal function. So, it'd be easier on the town for, accounting purposes. It'd be easier on us because we wouldn't have to go down there. And it would just, truncate, be more efficient, so it is something that we approved before, but again, it didn't get into the minutes.
Well,
So-
I remember when Gene had your job called, they used to bring it, they had a bag with change and drive her crazy. And she come in, they count out.
Yeah.
So it sort of sounds like it doesn't make sense to do that, so it saves you actually having to go and make the deposits, bring the information back to the town, and then record the information. It's just, so you're talking about a motion to authorize
So, but
an employee
But
of the
Becky-
town to make.
the financial director, whatever.
Right, and that's a good point, actually. Gary is an employee of the town, doesn't necessarily have to be Becky, I suppose, it could be. Town clerk as well, or the treasurer, so.
But they just need an official, Becky told me that she reviewed some of the, past meetings, to trying to find where we did, I know we did it. It had to have been when Matt was here, that's all I can think.
Right, yeah, let's blame that.
Financial manager, is that right? Finance director.
Finance director.
Finance, all right, I don't know her official title.
So how about if we move to authorize the finance director, Becky, or somebody authorized by her to make deposits? Or a town employee authorized by. her.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, and I think she worked for the treasurer. So,
Insurance.
so the board is authorizing them to do.
yeah,
Somebody can word that better. than-
but I think that's fine, I think they just want something along those lines,
Right.
in general, I mean.
So someone else doesn't come along new and say, why is this going on?
Right, I just think they just want. to
Right.
Dot the i's, cross the t's.
So let's get a motion.
Yeah, I'll make, I'll make a motion that, we, write into the minutes authorization for a town employee, specifically, Becky or anyone that she designates,
Right.
or the treasurer, so they can make deposits only, not withdrawals, into the Bank of New Hampshire, so we could, have more efficiency in deposits and accounting.
Wait here a second.
I second the motion.
Second, further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. Pass. And I think that's what Becky wanted. That will be official now. It's in the minutes and it's in some video. That's great too. Okay, before we get into the policy statement, I think we should give a history of what's been this whole board, but before that, thank you, Paul. Before that, I think what we Paul give him background on his life and ventures, mine too, and that way we're all set. Because Gary did it last time and did a great job.
Yes.
All right, Paul, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, my name is Paul Turdawan. I trustee of trust fund for 2 years now. I'm a resident in Lincoln for 10 years. I retired from the U.S. State Department. I was with the State Department 15 years. I was military for 4 years. I was did numerous 25 years of service in government altogether. I've done numerous budgetary and acquisitions for the for government, large sums of money, but maybe not the not investing at this level for stocks and bonds and things. And yeah, look forward to continuing service to the town and helping our community do better. And again, thanks to the chairman for his diligent approach to investing these funds, which has gained quite a bit of return on investment over the last over his tenure.
They're in the Legion. What you doing to Legion too?
Oh, I'm also so part of the member of the American Legion here in town, and also financial officer there. I've been on the Child Care Center board here in town as well. So I think that's all I've done. And you run for numerous offices, but
And you've taken on what I think is the toughest job on the board, as chief financial officer. Took it on, landed with feet on the ground, has done tremendous with the bank, tremendous with this board, the town, and everybody that works with him says he's awesome. And I couldn't agree more, and he's excited about this, and I know he's doing this same kind of work with the Legion for investments. He's very active in the town with his children, town schools, and a great addition to this board at a time when we needed people, because leaving. He's got the right attitude, and he has a lot of government service, so you can't. Very thankful for having him on the board. Great asset.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. See, I'm trying to think I think I'll start with Rhode Island. I think we're the way up here. Originally from Rhode Island. They taught school, taught down there. I subbed from 1 to 12, then I taught full time 7 to 12. I taught unusually I taught 6 different histories every day. I didn't repeat like a lot of schools do. I also taught constitutional law for 3.5 years. And was chairman of the drama department in 2 schools, and we had so many. We started out with 1 class, moved up with 3 so far. I served on boards in 4 different states, chairing some of them. Got involved in politics in Rhode Island. Very tough place to win, not being a Democrat, which I'm not. Ran for office, served on committees, worked for gubernatorial campaigns, senatorial campaigns. And in 1972, I worked on the president's re-election committee, and I was a deputy press secretary, not only in Washington, but in Rhode Island. Moved up New Hampshire in 2010. Very active at my condo in Northampton, past president, now the vice president. I'm also vice chairman of the budget committee, just re-elected 2 weeks ago. And we're still looking for somebody if somebody's interested. In fact, 2 seats are open. It's been an honor to work on these boards, and the town people are very excited about what we're doing. We get people viewing our meetings. A lot of people took a little kid in the meeting who's going to be watching those. But when you look them up, I've looked up meetings that were 2-3 years ago, and at 30-40 views, which is a lot for a local meeting. If you look on YouTube, some of these towns doing 4 and 5 people. So must be doing something right, and we're very pleased that we're on YouTube. A lot of people say they watch it, they have questions, they didn't understand some things, and it's great to be able to answer people's situations, and it's great to be on the board with my colleagues I have here. You can't always get, somebody who's gung ho about it. The people on this board definitely are, and I think that's an asset for the town and for the board. I think that sums me up. Now we can get into what's for the board. When I came on this board, there were two people, and they met once a year, sometimes twice. And I came on the board to kind of like break the tie vote, because they had 1-1. It wasn't much really to do. They weren't really getting too far, because they lock a head out of their shoe half the year. They had no decision, 2 votes, that's it. So I came in, and that was 2015. And the first thing I noticed, which I thought was an error, was the fact that we were getting $229 a year on $2 million. I said, this has to be, there's no way this is logical. And I checked into it, and I was told, yeah, that's what we get. We get that money every year. Yeah. Okay, well, first thing we need to do is bring some banks in here to compete for the money we have. And over a 2-year process, we brought in 5 different banks, questioned them extensively of what they were going to do for us when they had this money. And the problem we had with some banks was they had a problem with the catastrophe, like we call the God situation. A truck, happened to be destroyed, freak accident, lightning hit or something. And we would ask the banks, what's your policy on God events, things that happen? Well, we don't have a policy on it, but we wouldn't be honoring anything of that nature. So I said, okay, that's not a good answer. Other people said we take it case by case and review it. That sounds a little better. But we found a bank that said things happen, they happen. We understand that. You need money immediately. And anytime the selectmen can come to us and say, look, we have an emergency here, we need X amount of dollars. And we can do that when we have a bank that has no problem with, say, oh, we need 2 months, we need a month to review, we need a committee to look at it. We have to time for that. So eventually we picked the right bank. And I became the bank rep, vice chairman of the board, and eventually chairman. And the first year we were involved with the bank, New Hampshire said that's an awesome job. We went from 229 to 8,000. Second year, 8,000 to 16. Next year, 32, 48, 57, 75, 100,000. And I believe, Paul, I think last year was 247.
I think that's right.
247. So we have come one long road. And I think that, it's only gonna get better and better, because we definitely have the right people with a wealth management program. We didn't even know before that the money that we had invested wasn't even in a wealth management. I'm not gonna go into names, but I'm just gonna say that we didn't even know that, which makes one big difference. Something also that I instituted on the board was investing in CDs that were very good. Now we picked a bank, and I get criticized for this too. It's called Primary Bank. They had 1 branch at that time. That was criticism. Why are we going with this bank? Because they were offering 2.45 on 230,000 investment, which nobody else was at that time. Now, true, there are one bank. Everybody's we're gonna go with them. Today they have 5 banks, so that shows the fact. We also made an investment with the TD Bank for $100,000 for a CD, and we did pretty good with that. But these are ideas that we brought into the board. Definitely modernized. I mean, we're having 8 to 10 meetings a year compared to the 1 or 2 in the past. We've got people that are really interested in what we're doing. We've had some great people on this board in the past, financial people. I'm not saying they were experts, but they were gung ho what they were doing. Chief financial officer, good, and Paul, I think, has done an outstanding job. Good communication with the bank, good communication with the town, which is very important. I've been on boards where that was not the case, and it doesn't work that well. But overall, I think we're doing great with this, and we're going to continue. And we can find other things to invest in. We will, following state guidelines. But it's been quite a roll. A lot of people did not want me to do this when I was bank rep and push this with the board. There was a lot of people who were against this. So it was not a good thing to do. And of course, a lot of these people no longer are here, not working down anymore. And a lot of people that had so much to say in the beginning now, you know, when they see this money coming in, it's not questioned. That speaks for itself. But so I'm very pleased. I'm a long way and going the right way. We have the right people here, right people at the bank. Break it down and do a good job. Break it, excellent communication. I think on our 417 meeting, I talked about the fact that when I had a question for Frank, that he thought the CEO of the bank should answer. The CEO calls me up when he's on a trip to Chicago. I call the plane, and he calls me and answers the question, which I thought was fantastic. Not many CEOs ever called me from a bank to answer any questions. I can guarantee on any board I would serve in any state. So I thought that was amazing. Like he said, thanks for the commercial, but it's the truth. They just a grand slam with these people. And we're going to keep going, and I'm very pleased in the situation, and we'll go forward.
Sounds like you've done a great job.
Well, we've done, you know, it was a battle. I'm not going to say it was easy because people didn't want to rock the boat, you know, and I just couldn't see getting that little bit of money. I mean, I thought it was great when we went 229 to 8,000. I was excited, right? I've been making dreams. What's that? Making dreams a reality. I never had any idea we'd ever get to money like this, but it just shows you give it the right people, and you know, some of the other banks they couldn't come up with answers. They couldn't, but Bank of New Hampshire brought 5. In fact, Bank of New Hampshire brought up 5 people, regional vice presidents from the New England area, to discuss what they do. Whereas other banks would come in with one person. They had 5 people in it. They were all in the local manager, of course, and you know, they had all of, we have this, we have a chart, we have this, and any questions you got, you know. And also they gave us references, not of other vice presidents, but references of towns that they are representing. Just like they do that now with us. I've had like Jackson contacted me before they got involved, and they're thrilled about that. But that's a great working relationship. They said, we want you to call these people. So I called and talked to them, and they said, answer anything, they come when you want. Even when they're not scheduled to come, they'll do a telephone call. Now, of course, they do a Zoom. So I mean, you really can't. This doesn't happen every day. This is really, these guys are just good with us, and we go over everything with them, and there's definite advantages to this. They have their view. They present it to us. We have questions. Sometimes we change things. We've changed things we were concerned about. Some bonds we were concerned about in the past have matured, and that's not an issue anymore. But you know, they certainly listen. They respond well. I called Frank at 9 o'clock, and at 9:05 he's emailed me back.
Yeah, they're very responsive.
They're very, very good about that, Terry. No, never had a delay. Terry's good too. Terry will answer something. Paul's worked with Terry
Terry's been out
extensively.
we sat down with the state. It's worked out. And you know, under Reedford's tenure, the town's made over $1 million. You know, and as we investigate, you know, the American Legion wasn't making, it was in a very similar situation. Is now we're slowly transitioning out of that. I talked to the school, and they have a similar state. It's not, and they haven't figured it all out, but with the school, they do have some funds that are invested with the state, but not all their funds. Certainly, it doesn't sound like they're operating. That's probably true also with the town, not their operating. So I think there's a lot of room for growth in here, and you know, certainly with our town, but just like with Jackson, throughout the state, a lot of people aren't taking full advantage of these resources. And if you look at it statewide, those are vast amounts of resources that are just sitting on the table.
Well, they have 13 towns that they're doing the wealth management for.
Yeah.
And some of the towns, interestingly enough, I was criticized for having too many meetings, which I thought was crazy. Some of these towns that Bank of Hampshire represents, they have meetings weekly. They have that much money invested, weekly trust fund. Some have monthly. I mean, we do 4 a year with them, and any special thing they would do. But there's some, he said, but there's some that meet weekly because they have so much money, they have to, you know, they really have to appropriate it. Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, that shows you, I'd like them in that situation where we have to meet every week. I don't think we'll ever get like that, but I think we've come a long way from where we were.
Hank did provide me with electronic access to the meeting.
I was just gonna ask you.
Yeah, yesterday, I guess, was actually just yesterday. It was
Good.
So I was able to go in and look at the information. Of course, I can't make any transactions.
Oh, no, no.
But it does provide me with the account overview. It's very, very helpful.
Well, you should, you're an officer of the board, so you should.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's nice to be able to have the access to it.
And something else that we initiated too. I used to be the person who wrote the check and signed it. And I was uncomfortable with that. I don't think it's a good idea. So we initiated changes. So now Paul writes the check before Paul G wrote the check, and I would sign it. I think it's better to have. I don't think the same person writing it should be signing it. It's that, you know, you don't want to have that, even the hint of anything could be.
Right.
No,
I mean, I
in
think
that way, and that stops it.
Yeah.
There's no, that's something we initiated, and I said, we've got to, we used to have 2 signers too, yeah, and we stopped that. But first of all, not enough space on the check. If somebody one person wrote really big, so, I said, this isn't gonna work. So I don't think we need 2 to sign. But one to write the check, yes, one to sign it, yes, that eliminates.
That's any 2 board members, right? I mean, I don't know if is that in our policy statement? I mean, I never thought about this.
What's normally been,
It's
it's normally been the financial officer and the chairman, normally, but. Oh, so, think about it.
It's not a, yeah. Anyway, we can
I
think
don't
about
see any reason to change that.
Yeah. Unless somebody was out ill or
Yeah.
something, or.
Yeah, and just off the top of my head, I think the amount of meetings we have is adequate. I don't think we need any more. You know,
Yeah.
Than what we have.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah, we don't really,
quarterly, and more working meetings. Typically, it's not a hard and fast, but it's or also typically quarterly. It's 8 meetings. I think that's fine.
but I people tell me that's, you shouldn't have more than 2 a year.
Yeah.
No, not when you deal with money of this caliber. I mean, there's a provision in the book that says one town has less than 10,000, so they have 1 trustee. So I mean that's okay.
Right, and towns do it differently. A lot of them don't have it. Like have a minimal, if any, trust fund at all, you know.
Right.
We have I don't know compared to other towns, but it seems like we have we have almost the entire budget worth of money in the trust fund, which is.
And we're keeping that million because we're getting good interest.
Right, we're keeping $1 million like
That-
liquid.
Keeping it liquid. That was something we initiated 2 years ago. We started, let's get 500,000, keep it liquid, just in case,
Right.
you know, and now we're at $1 million, so I think that's.
So I do have a question on the pay manager. So at the meeting I was at last month, my first meeting.
Yeah.
They did give us this very nice report.
Yeah, they give you that every time they come.
They alerted us to some bonds which are maturing.
Yep.
They made reference to some decisions that will have to be made in terms of how to reinvest that money after they mature. But my question is, so when they didn't come in with any particular investment decisions.
No.
Do they usually come in with recommendations, or do they report what they've already done?
I think it's one of both, possibly.
I mean, we give them. They're free to invest how they want to invest the money, and we give them the guidelines for investing. So, for example, we said we want $1 million in money market. For two reasons. One, money market is returning gangbusters, but number two, the town it periodically asks us for money, and we don't want to deplete funds that are invested, so we make that availability. So things like that, as far as money market, how much in S&P 500, how much in bonds. In general, we give those things. We in general say we want AAA bonds. In general, we say, you know, index funds, not, you know, don't invest in gold, don't invest in cryptocurrency, don't invest in ESG. Versus all going to be in our policy statement. We give them those general guidelines, and they're pretty much adamant about, like, hey, we're in control of this fund, so we are going to decide what's the timing is of those investments. So we let them handle that. They want that. I mean, I suppose we of course we have full authority, but our agreement with the Bank of New Hampshire is you don't get way down in the weeds on these things, because we don't want to hamstring them. And frankly, I mean, no one, we don't have the ability to track these things day in and day out.
No,
I mean, that's just, and you know, I'm not sure we even have the expertise for correctly laddering the bonds for the things, and it can get complicated, even though it's not a lot of money per se. It can get complicated pretty quickly, you know, especially with the maturity of bonds and the timing of the market for different things. So the S&P 500 or whatever.
Right.
And you know, and there's, you know, the other layer of, you know, what they can and can't invest in. You know, the rating of bonds and gold or whatever.
One thing we got rid of a few years ago was like 5 years, 5 years ago. We got some 5-year thing, but I don't like that. 3.
Right.
2,
Yeah. Right. And
5
maturity. Yeah, that's another.
There were even 7-year one that said no, absolutely not. I don't want to go down that road because you don't know. I suppose you don't know who's going to be. You know, it's all different people, and what this guy do for 7 years? It's crazy. And something happens, and then we would get, you know, blamed for it.
Right, and that's a good thing about when they do give us the quarterly report, they always include the investment policy statement. So
exactly.
that is our, you know, that's our Bible pretty much to them. Right. So if there's something in there, again, with gold or crypto or things that, not that anyone here or they are going to invest in gold or crypto or ESG funds for that matter.
We had past members that want.
But you know, we have it in there that, and I think I can't remember if we put in how much to have liquid in there. I think Matt did write some things about,
Yeah,
having, money market
yeah, I've got it.
funds available.
Got it.
So that's, I would look at that, although they do verbally listen to us and obviously these things are recorded. But it's always better to have it in writing.
Sure, absolutely.
Gary would agree on.
That all makes sense. So the policy statement that's in the booklet that was passed out at the last month was the last policy statement. And is there a
Right, well,
new one that
we've got a new one that we've worked on, it's all ready to go, and then Gary got a job and left for Gary. I'm sorry, I think of you, Gary. No, I don't want you to stay right there. Yeah, we've changed everything, made some changes, nothing big. I can go over it. We're gonna give this to the bank in July. We were talking about what was signed quite a while ago. And we thought there was some changes that needed to be made. We went over this at our work session. That would have been in March 13th. Trying to remind you, I gotta go over the dates because somebody asked me about that the other day. All right, why don't we, you got the old one.
Yeah, I have the old one. I don't have the.
You've got the old one.
So he doesn't have.
Well, should I read what we changed? I mean, that's.
You don't have to do it, that's fine, I mean, that's what we're.
I mean,
so I might as well-
everything.
It'd be nice if Gary had a copy, but maybe you guys move closer together.
Yeah, we could do that, yeah. See, everything is the same you've got, other than where this red is. Okay. So if you pick up on the last paragraph on the first page, in accordance with the vote of the trustees, no high-risk investments will be made in such as, but not limited to, commodities, currencies. Then we added cryptocurrencies, all precious metals. Additionally, the trustees have decided not to invest in any environmental, social development, ESG securities. And that was Paul really came out with a lot of information and facts about that, and very right. That's the only change on the first page. That's it.
Well, I have some thoughts.
Sure.
This is already done, so it'd be too late to do anything about it. Well,
We can talk.
first of all, yeah. Okay, well, the cryptocurrency thing, I don't have a problem with it, but it's interesting that as of just yesterday, Governor Ayotte signed a bill which makes New Hampshire the first state in the nation to allow the investment of public funds in cryptocurrency. I think it's up to a maximum of 5%.
Right.
And she gave authority to, state investment officials to make the decision about whether or not to make those investments. Since this policy is adopted for like a year at a time, is my understanding.
We could change it anytime.
Yeah, all right. So I have no problem with the prohibition against high risk investments such as commodities, cryptocurrencies, and now including cryptocurrencies as well as precious metals, unless somebody might take it out in light of the decision by government to change that. But I do have some concerns that I'd like to discuss. It'll take a little while. The prohibition against the way it's stated now is investing in environmental, social, and governance, ESG securities. So I have quite a bit of information about this and quite a few thoughts about it. I think that is basically taking a political position, which the trustees should not be doing. We should be basing our decisions on fiduciary responsibilities to follow the investment advice. What is the best investment in a particular point in time, for one thing. In ruling out that the way it's worded is not invest in any ESG securities. The Standard and Poor's 500 has stocks which are considered so-called ESG stocks. So those would be ESG securities. I looked at our portfolio of bonds, and we have bonds of Chevron, which, believe it or not, is considered an ESG company. If there is such a thing as ESG companies, we have Target, which is an ESG company. So this term of what is an ESG security, what is an ESG company is a little confusing and ambiguous. The way I understand it works is just about every company out there, every publicly traded company has some type of ESG policy for the most part, and they are rated on a scale. They have scores, and some are considered more ESG than others. But just to be clear on what we're talking about, ESG stands for environmental, social, governance. So companies that have high scores on ESG ratings are companies which have policies which try not to damage the environment, and the environmental aspect of it. From the social aspect of it, they try to support the community, try to employees they generally don't have excessive executive compensation, and they have good shareholder rights. So a lot of the companies which try to focus on these ESG factors are companies which are doing it because they feel it's good for the company to make it a strong company, to make it a company that people want to invest in. So they consider it as something that will make them profitable, desirable, and a good investment. Now, there may be periods of times which companies which do that are good investments. There may be periods of time which companies which don't focus on that, focus to stay away from it, are better investments. So I think that, there could be a lot of reasons that somebody could argue that the town of Lincoln should be investing its funds in companies which do focus on ESG factors. Town of Lincoln relies heavily on recreation. Our environment is vital to our economy here. So there are a lot of reasons why Lincoln should be interested in environmental, social, governance type investments. But while one could advocate that we should be weighted in favor of those types of investments, one could also think the opposite. So I think we should have a neutral position on it. I think that we should let the investment advisors decide what type of investment is appropriate, and ruling out those funds might be acting against our fiduciary duty. We should let the market decide, and our investment advisors decide at any particular time what type of investments are going to provide the best return for our money. So I see some problems with the policy the way that sentence is currently written, because we have some investments now which could be considered ESG securities, some bonds, some S&P funds. And I also think it takes a position on a political position, and we should be neutral rather than one way or the other. And one other irony, I think, to it is that one of the funds that we are administering is one of the trust funds, is the Roland Dubois Settlement Fund. And that fund exists because of a settlement that a person who was an environmental advocate achieved in protecting the environment. At that particular time, challenge practices that Blue Mountain was doing back 20 years ago,
Right.
Blue Pond, and he won, and then he achieved a settlement, so we are the steward of these funds, which exists because of this individual's actions to protect the environment in this area, and we shouldn't be ruling out any investment which might be environmentally friendly. I think it would be inconsistent with schools. And speaking of Loon, they aren't a publicly traded company, but they're a big part of the economy here. And Boyne is not a publicly traded company, but Loon certainly is a company which, in my mind, stands for a lot of ESG factors. They have their project forever. Wherever they cut down a tree, they want to replace it with another tree. They have their own community funds. So from a social standpoint, they are very socially involved with the community, and they have, I think, good relations with their team members and employees. So from a governance standpoint, it seems to be sort of an ESG type model. So I think, a lot of arguments are out there that ESG weighted companies or ESG oriented companies are good things, wise investments, prudent investments, but some people, for political reasons, in some states have for political reasons tried to walk away from investments in that area. So I think we should take a neutral position. As for the states which have acted on this matter, I did do some research, and they're all over the place. There really aren't that many that have actually prohibited investment in companies that are ESG weighted or oriented. There are some which have taken out policies which previously required ESG type investments. There are some which express a preference one way or the other. They're kind of all over the place. And Paul Barton this morning proclamation that Governor Sununu signed in 2023. It encouraged the New Hampshire retirement system to not invest in funds that follow ESG criteria as their primary investment goal. I don't know if there are very many companies that have ESG as their primary investment goal. I think ESG, as I said before, is just about every company. If you look out there, has a policy. If you Google any company and look up their ESG policy, you're going to find, their score, their policy, how strong they are or not. And there are some mutual funds which focus on ESG friendly funds, but there's no policy in New Hampshire which bans us from acting, from us investing funds in funds which are considered ESG friendly. And if our fiduciary is recommended that some particular time in the future, probably not now, because frankly, I would think that funds that companies which focus on things that are considered environmentally friendly right now might not be good investments. But we should leave it up to our investment advisors to advise us on what's the best investment in the particular time. So sorry for going on so long on that.
No, I think it's very, that's Paul, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, there were some ESG funds that they were the Bank of New Hampshire was investing in. So we brought up the point, and just to get all of the, when we wrote this, I guess a few years ago, someone was recommended that we invest in gold. And right. So, and this morning, Gary brought up that the governor authorized cryptocurrency up to 5%, which I did not know about. Which we just a month ago signed this thing that said that no, which I certainly have heartache with, but I understand exactly what you're saying, and again, in a perfect world, I agree with exactly what you're saying. Unfortunately, some of these things are start having a life of their own. And, I would recommend, at least initially, and I'm willing to, we can mull this over, you know. I would say we adopt the fiduciary statement from New Hampshire as maybe an amendment for the new cryptocurrency one that AI, and maybe as part of our underlying policy, and then when we talk to the Bank of New Hampshire, we'll make it clear that, you know, from my point of view, of course, we focus on return on investment, and maybe hint not to do the cryptocurrency and the gold, and because I don't know. I mean, I understand what the governor is getting at, and I understand it might be a political thing to, especially with this cryptocurrency, and it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. Maybe I'm too old to understand. I own cryptocurrency and still own cryptocurrency, but I don't really get it, you know? So I would say I would adopt any of this letter from the governor, executive order, and one from, or the new one from Governor Ayotte as a dependent, and, you know, our investment policy in general being the best return on our monies. Because because it gets really complicated now.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that complicated 2 months ago, but
Do we need to wipe out cryptocurrencies and change that last sentence?
well, with cryptocurrency, I would, well, I mean, Gary's the words. I would, if Gary has better words on there, since he is an attorney, that's great. And I would just include these fiduciary documents as addendums or attachments. Because we do have to give, I think we have to, not just this board, but the next board. When I came onto this board, we were looking at an old policy. We didn't have we didn't have an attorney on hand to look at these things, but we took excerpts, as you can see, we took parts of the, state handbook or guidebook and dropped them into our policy statement, and then we decided to take those things out and just reference the handbook, and not come up with our own wording or excerpts of wording. So, I would be more with, adopting fiduciary duties as stated by the state, and leave as little of our own wording out of our policy.
So, yeah, I think those are some good thoughts. As far as the governor's executive order, I like the part where you said we should focus on maximizing return and our fiduciary duty. And if we look at paragraph number 1, order near the bottom, it says number 1, executive branch agencies shall prioritize investment decisions that maximize financial returns and minimize risk as part of their fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the state and the beneficiaries of the state's trust funds. I like that.
I like that too.
And I almost think we can kind of leave it at that. And I think we should stay away from the ESG thing, because if we just leave it at that, I think we're better off, because if there's a point in time when our advisors think we should invest in ESG oriented funds, and maybe we would want to, there's a point in time where the advisors not to, and we would not want to. But they aren't like a risk category. They aren't like something we want to stay away from because it's too risky. Like,
Well, they can be risky because, you know, if you go like, for example, green energy, which was gangbusters, you know,
Yes.
2 years ago. Now, I'm sure companies are in danger of collapsing because of it, you know, big companies like Tesla. It's like, you know,
right,
If
but
we-
our policy statement should be not geared on the changes in the political winds or the changes in the cycle. We should have a longer term vision, right? So, yeah, so I understand they can be risky. There are periods of time where the ESG, excuse me, Morningstar, I think, is the rating company that's objective, and I think during the 10-year period leading up to 2020, ESG oriented funds outperformed non-ESG funds by 60%. I mean, 60% of ESG funds outperformed non-ESG. In 2021, Morningstar said that ESG oriented funds had a 33% return, and that outperformed the rest of the market by 8%. So these go through cycles, and as I was saying before, and as you just alluded to, right now might not be the best time for environmentally friendly funds. But making it a policy statement, I just think it fluctuates too much. And I think if we just stuck with something basic, like the first paragraph of the governing order, that would be good. And a separate issue is whether or not you want to keep in there commodities, currencies, and whether or not you want to keep in precious metals. But I would leave the ES, personally, and I would just focus on the risks. And I defer to you guys as to whether it's even a still of trustees, not you guys, on whether you want to keep in the prohibition against high risk investments, whether that should include commodities, currencies, precious metals, and whether it also now should include cryptocurrencies, or whether you want to now leave that out because of the government doesn't. I don't have a preference.
yeah, I mean, just real quick thoughts on that. Gold has returned better than, you know, the S&P 500 for the last 15, 20 years. Absolutely. So, you know, and you know, when the value of the dollar drops, goes up. So I agree with you on, you know, having that first paragraph in. You know, I would just include this as an attachment where the new letter is an attachment. So, yeah, and maybe just stay away from, ESG, crypto, and gold. And maybe we don't need to. I still don't like it, personally. I feel stronger, but I'm also okay with the current configuration of the board that we aren't going to go to.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
The bad place. So I'm fine with it if we, you know, just wordsmith it a little bit to make it more general and focus on the return, and just do the proper attachments for the governor. Just so you know, we have to give enough direction to the Bank of New Hampshire, because they will go and start doing things if we don't tell them what to do.
Exactly.
So, Paul, just a question. I follow you on paragraph 1 from government word. I'm not clear on whether you would like to keep in the prohibition against what's called high risk investments. Or whether you, which currently is commodities, currencies, and precious metals, and maybe cryptocurrency, whether you'd like to just take that out as well.
I'm open to advice on those. I mean, honestly, I mean, you're bringing up attorney points that are good. I mean, no, I'm serious. So I think you know where I'm at on investment. As far as these individual investment, I don't know. I don't know what the new policy is from the governor. I see. I understand what this policy is in front of me for the ESG, and I'm attaching that as a reference of attachment. It's fine. I don't know what the new one is. So, I mean, as far as cryptocurrencies is concerned, I don't know if we have this. I don't know if we have to state it.
Maybe
You know,
to that. Maybe we could. I'm looking at the old policy. Maybe we could leave in the prohibition against high risk investments include commodities, currencies, and precious metals, if you want. And just keep cryptocurrency out of it because that's the thing that sort of changed and we don't really know what the government does do. And we want to keep going over that by the governor's decision.
right. That's what I'm kind of thinking, right? I mean, you nailed what I was thinking because it's like, well, if the government, the thing of New Hampshire, I don't want to contradict what they're saying, even though in practice we won't follow through with it, but I do kind of feel strongly about that because of the precious metal parts, because it has come up in the past.
Oh,
and
many
we
times.
need to get some guidance to at least the
Many.
next board that is still a questionable thing to invest in. I know it sounds kind of weird because the gold standard was what all our currency was based on in our lifetime, and it's very convoluted, so these value of the dollar type things. So,
Just eliminate that. And then, okay, now we'll go on to page 2. Where we made some changes. Under current investment guidance, the investment time horizon of trustees or trust funds shall be no more, well, we don't cover it, than 3 years. This is to ensure that sitting board members only make prudent decisions during their term of office. So we've had people come on for a year and leave, 2 years.
And I think part of that was that we just thought that was too long an investment. I think it's a primary concern.
Yeah.
It's too long an investment. And then the secondary justification was the tenure of the board.
Right, and we also got, the times of, things 5 years that went.
Yeah, I mean, that
Happy on
kind of void your
what happened in
years tenure into the water and stuff.
Okay, and B, $1 million of cash equivalents to be held in money market accounts, what you already discussed, with the policy to be reviewed as interest rates change over time. Okay, C, a majority of capital reserve investments are to be made in fixed income bonds as recommended by the trustees asset manager. D, non-capital reserve funds to be invested in S&P 500 diversified index funds, with this policy point to be reviewed as market dynamics change over time. That was the other changes. So I'm going to give you this so you can do it. I think, we make the changes that we suggest. Oh, and I understand your concerns. And
I think they're all addressed.
the same thing.
I think we're all set. Just reference the attachment for this and for the new governor's.
I just thought of one other question. Sorry, I really liked what you were saying about the 3-year time horizon, but I just now took a look at the list of fixed income bonds, and some of them like don't mature until 2030. So would that mean that we couldn't authorize the bank to buy like a 5-year bond?
Yeah, basically, I mean, I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do
We don't
that.
want
I don't know specifically which bond you're referencing or when it was purchased. And it may have been purchased and maybe it slipped through, but I mean, that is the general feeling. But we say 2 year or 3 year. 3 years. 3 years, okay. But yeah, you know, that's exactly right. So something that matures beyond the 3 years is not desirable or not authorized.
Well, so we had banks coming in, talking about 7 to 10 years.
Right,
Yeah.
you're buying.
So yeah, we're not buying 7 years, that's crazy. But that's what that was
Well, I mean, it's almost tying up the fund, the town's money. I mean.
No, this wasn't a bank in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This was not.
I mean, you know, I mean. The town would spend all this money tomorrow if they wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, and then we'd have to take a bath on whatever was.
Yeah, we'd have to dump those, we'd have to
bonds, you
dump.
know, they get, you know, their value at the end. They're actually, bonds are negative until they reach the end of their maturity. You know, so if we sold them, we'd be selling them at a loss. We definitely, I mean, it could be a crisis, hopefully, you know, the
Yeah.
ladder, so it won't be that much of a risk, but.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So we've agreed that we're gonna take crypto out of that?
I think we're gonna take the crypto out of there,
Yeah.
and reference whatever the governor like or executive for.
All right.
I haven't read it yet.
So we would basically just be per line through there, and a line through the next line also, about ESG. And we'd be adding paragraph 1 from the quarter. Yeah, I don't know if we need to include what the governor did yesterday. I think by just taking out the prohibition against cryptocurrencies, we're just authorizing us to invest in them if we wanted to. But unless we'd probably have to wait till another meeting to see
What's in the order, which is fine. We're not-
It's fine.
we're not-
or we could just leave it out and that opens us up to do whatever the governor.
Good idea. Well, the reason, because Paul asked about this over time too. This policy, that why wasn't it ever updated? Was my suggestion on several occasions to do it on the board members, and they said, the policy looks fine to me. I was on board.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why we didn't change it.
yeah, I would, you know, let's look at the other governors.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And see what's going on there, and then, again, I would, vote to include it as an attachment. And then, you know,
Right.
maybe when we come back from the class on the trust fund, maybe we'll have more information from those people as well.
Yeah.
Again, I was, you know, we have to give the Bank of New Hampshire guidance, so they
Exactly.
know what to invest in, especially. And we put in there, just on the side, but, you know, put in the index fund, which is, I think, you know, the mathematical formula that, you know, you can still talk to the guy who's still around who came up with the index fund, you know, and you can get into index funds too, as far as weighted and unweighted, but you know, the index is a representative sample of 500 companies, but when everyone goes into their S&P 500, they do a sample size of the sample size, and you're ended up with, you know, 8 to 15 sub companies within that, you know, and you know, they're usually weighted toward that, you know, magnificent 7, you know, which is, you know, now there's a lot of debate, you know, not every index fund is every index fund, because you have equally weighted index funds and you have a representative sample of an index fund. So, you know, I'm okay with it either way, but you know, it is something to, you know, think about too. I'm fine with the way it's wording. I'm fine with how these guys are doing it. But you know, I mean, people can get wrapped around the axles on that too.
True.
Well, it sounds like your new criteria on the second page at the end of the
Yeah, that,
guidelines
there's
are
no other
are
changes.
good. Yeah, I mean, the 3-year horizon is really not.
Yeah.
Once.
yeah, that $1 million, that's if we're getting good interest, that's the idea.
Bonds.
If we weren't, we wouldn't.
Right, and and that's something to be aware of too, you probably wanna think about that one too down the line.
Right.
For that
Oh,
$1,000.
absolutely.
Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but it's
Still gotta think about it.
it will need to be readdressed in the future, probably in some form. Just because of the size of the fund and needs of the city, and the investment price, running with it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Gary, for your.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Gary. That's a lot of good
Appreciate that.
insight that I didn't think about before.
Thanks a lot. We do that and we can sign it and we will give it to them and next, while we're talking about meetings, somebody asked me about the other day. Meetings we've had so far in 25, January 16th, 2025 was with Bank of New Hampshire. March 13th, 2025 was election and a work session. April 17th, 2025 was a meeting with the Bank of New Hampshire for their report on the wealth management. Today, May 8th, 2025 is a work session going over past history of the board with our new trustee Gary. Next meeting is July 17th. And that's at 10 o'clock at the Lincoln Town Hall, and that will be with the Bank of New Hampshire for their annual review, well, quarterly review, I should say. So we have had 5 meetings so far this year. And
Did you say the next one's at July 17th?
July 17th,
Okay, I'm sorry.
July 17th
Yeah, I have it.
at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We have our work sessions at 9 because we have board members that want to go on. I remember years ago, we had people that want to have meetings 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, not that the bank didn't come up and have it, but they prefer morning ones, so they can get other work done, I'm sure. Okay, that takes care of that. Is there any old business? I don't think so. Anybody have any old business? No. New business, I think we took care of that with our work session. And old business too. We got Gary up to speed. And we appreciate having him on the board and his expertise and legal background and being an attorney. That's awesome.
Thank you for the background information from both of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to I did mention when I was in college that we had 3 law courses that were taught by sitting judges at a time in Rhode Island. And each judge that we had told us, even though this isn't law school, as far as I'm concerned, this is a law class here in law school. So we got a lot more information out of the books. So it helped me teach constitutional law later, which was, I still use my notes. Okay, don't think there's anything else unless, thank you to Paul for getting the video going. Thanks to Karina for getting the TV going and checking on that April 17th meeting. That's important because it was a bank meeting. A couple people asked me about it, and that should be definitely on the schedule. But yeah, if anybody wants to be on the budget committee, we're looking for 2 people, and it's challenging board. There's 13 of us, so it's interesting work. And I've been as vice chairman since 2014. It's interesting, I'll tell you that. Okay, at this point, I will call for a motion of adjournment.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? Passed, and we're done at 10:17, not 10:18. Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. An hour. I'm gonna put this off.
Yep. We will appreciate it. I will pull the batteries out of the lights here.